What's up, guys? It's three-time NFL Pro Bowler, all-decade return specialist, Josh Cribbs. I want to welcome you to the Mac Sports Connection podcast, where Alex hosts all things Mac, all things football, all things sports, right here, Mac Sports Connection, baby. The Mid-American Conference best, bringing it only the greats, Mac, to everyone.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the Mac Sports Connection podcast, part of the Varsity Podcast presented by Learfield. I'm your host, Alex the Captain. Joining me, as always, my co-host, Graham. Graham, welcome back.
What's up, Alex? What's up, everybody? That's we had that fun Super Bowl over the weekend, or not so fun if you actually watched the game. Fun to see a bunch of Mac guys out there, though. And
bunch of Mac guys out there for sure.
Shout out from my hometown kid, Paris Campbell, who got that ring.
Got that ring, kid from Akron getting the ring, and then a couple Toledo Rockets getting some rings. Yeah. Speaking of the Toledo Rockets, Graham, I hope you bought your peanuts and Cracker Jacks, because we're going to talk some Mac baseball. And we're joined today by none other than Coach Rob Reinstetle from the University of Toledo Rockets. Coach, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, guys. This is great. That's one heck of an intro you got there with the podcast.
Josh Cribbs did me a solid for that one, for sure.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Well, Coach, again, welcome. How cool is that to see a couple Rockets win a championship ring at the highest level? That was awesome.
Oh, it's amazing, and Coach Campbell's done a great job of getting guys in and developing them. And, Hunt was on the other side with the Chiefs, but I mean, he's had a tremendous career, and just to be in that game and then to win it is amazing.
Absolutely. Coach, we're just going to get right into this. So you're from Ohio originally. What part of Ohio did you grow up?
I grew up in Columbus. So I went to Upper Arlington High School right there in Columbus. And then after I graduated, my family all migrated north. So everybody lives in Powell now. So about 2 hours away.
Powell. Wow. Okay. That's I've got some friends that I knew in college from Toledo who are from the Powell area. So I'm very familiar with that.
Well, if you look at my roster, there's quite a few Powell kids on there as well. We seem to hit that area pretty good.
It's always nice to go home, right?
Absolutely.
So obviously you're in Powell, you grow up. What brought you to Florida? How'd you get to Florida to play some college ball? That's quite a jump. A little bit warmer, I'm imagining.
Yeah. Actually I started out right out of high school. I went to the University of Tennessee and played for the Volunteers. And at that time, obviously they just won a national title, but back in the 90s, they were going to the College World Series and had a guy named Todd Helton that played for their team, which was pretty good. But I went down there, and honestly, I was like all-state kid in Ohio, and you get down to Tennessee, and it's SEC baseball, and your eyes kind of go boop. And next thing you know, it's I'm sitting in a room, and I got guys like Augie Ojeda, who played in the big leagues forever, and Scott Pickler, who played in the big leagues. I mean, like real guys, and you kind of like, okay, I used to be the big fish in the small pond, and that isn't the case anymore. So I ended up transferring to a junior college in Florida to play, and then went to Campbell University after that. And then from there, just kind of started my coaching career and got into it.
You moved to Ohio Dominican, and Graham and I were trying to do some research here. And I got to tell you, finding some D3 stats from back when you were there, really, really hard. But it does look like you have a home run in your time at Ohio Dominican. You remember who that was against?
It was on spring break down in Gulf Coast. I don't remember the exact team, but I know I hit it to left center and got it pretty good.
Okay.
But yeah, so I finished up there at Ohio Dominican, and I was kind of the transfer portal kid before the transfer portal was around. I just named 3 or 4 different schools that I was at. But when you play baseball, you kind of chase that dream to play, and that got me on the field, and really I got to go home, and then it started my coaching career, because as soon as I graduated, I stayed on staff as their hitting coach and recruiting guy, and that's kind of what got my coaching stint going.
Okay. Yeah, you've kind of become known as an excellent recruiter. So you start at Ohio Dominican. How do you develop those recruiting skills?
At Ohio Dominican, it was really interesting because it was a Division II school, or NAIA at the time, but really small. And we got a lot of kids from Puerto Rico, and we were really, really good. Like the year that I coached, we went to the College World Series out in Lewiston, Idaho, and we had some really good players. Jonathan Sanchez, who pitched for the Giants in the World Series and pitched for a while. He was on our team as a freshman. So, you start just kind of building those connections. Being an NAIA coach at the time, I was able to also scout with the Dodgers. So I was kind of a part-time scout, so to speak, and you kind of hone your skills that way. And then from there, my career just kind of took off and just started down south, really.
So talk about a little bit more of that time with the Dodgers. I mean, that had to have been an unreal experience. You're going from coaching at a Division II or NAIA school.
Yeah.
Now you're working with a professional organization. Stark contrast in what you're looking for, I have to imagine, right?
Yeah, and there's an old term called bird dog, and that's kind of what I was. So like that, we had the actual area scout for the Dodgers, who actually still is the area scout to this day for the state of Ohio and Kentucky and Michigan and all that. He was the one that kind of, I was his guy. Like when he couldn't go see a guy, I could go watch him, because at the time, like if you're an NCAA coach, you can't be affiliated with a professional team, but NAIA is a totally different animal, right? So okay. I could kind of do a little bit of both, and it allowed him to go out and watch some of the Division I guys. And then as we're playing, schools in Ohio, well, tell me about the pitcher at Malone. Tell me about the kid at Mount Vernon Nazarene. They're on my list, but I don't really have time to go see them. So I was able to kind of knock some of those guys off of his list and give him an idea of who, who's what. But it was a cool experience, and anytime you can say you're, affiliated with the Dodgers in any way was pretty cool even back then. I had a chance to go to scout school out in Arizona and chose to kind of get into the coaching world versus the scouting realm.
That's that scout school. Does that help you today when you're evaluating kids for the Rockets?
Oh yeah, like the way it works is like each club is back in it's kind of changed a little bit. Back in the day, each club would kind of nominate a person to go to scout school, and you would essentially go out to the Arizona Fall League and scout. And your job, you'd get up and you'd watch those Arizona Fall League games, which is the best prospects in professional baseball, and you're watching them and you're having to write reports on them. They're kind of honing your skills on what to look for and what a good baseball player is. The book is literally, they gave us a 3-ring binder about that big, just of what to look for in baseball players. It was kind of interesting and eye-opening in that regard, because a lot of times you just think you just go out and watch and you figure it out, but they actually had a lot of metrics that they were looking for. But again, I chose not to go that route and went the college, coaching route, which worked out really good for me.
I'd say it seems like some of those skills have helped out. You've recruited a couple MAC Player of the Year, Chris Myers, Jerome Williams. What's it like to coach guys like that? I mean, those are special talents who have done great things at Toledo.
Yeah, I've been very fortunate. I've coached at some really good places, and I've had 83 players now that have signed a professional contract, and 12 of those 83 made it to the big leagues. So wow. the guys the Jaron Williams and Chris Myers and all of them, that's my time here, and I'm very proud of those guys, because they kind of kept my numbers going or whatnot. But they're really good players. I mean, they compare with anybody that I coached in the SEC. Like I had Lance Lynn and Zach Cozart. David Freese was a World Series MVP. Brett Gardner at College of Charleston, who was the captain of the Yankees. So I've coached a lot of really good players in my time. And the kids that we've had here at Toledo rank right up there with them. I mean, Jaron Williams is a phenomenal talent. And then Chris and all those guys, it's crazy. I've been doing a lot of these, interviews here lately, but all those guys are flying through systems. I mean, Chris was in AA, Jaron's in AA, Kyle Jones is in AA. Grant Umberger just signed with the White Sox. He was our Friday night guy last year. He just got a contract with the White Sox. So these guys are moving through systems pretty quick, and I feel good that means what we're doing here at Toledo is preparing them for that next level so that they can make upward movement.
I had to smile a little bit. You mentioned Zach Cozart. I'm a big Cincinnati Reds fan. Yeah. How did you stay in touch with Zach after he went to the pros?
Yeah. I mean, all those guys, they get to a point in their career where you kind of don't talk to them as much as you used to. Sure. But yeah, Cozart was one that, he was a phenomenal defender. He was always, the question was always, could he hit? And then, he had that one really good year with the Reds and hit 17, 18 home runs. And that parlayed him into, I think, a bigger contract. And then he ended up with the Angels and all that. his biggest issue is he just couldn't stay healthy. I mean, you know, he always hurt, whatever it was, a knee, a shoulder. But he was a phenomenal talent. Lance Lynn was another one who's been one of the best pitchers in professional baseball. Had him at Ole Miss. Drew Palm. I mean, there's a lot of good players that I've been very, very fortunate to be around and kind of. You talk about the recruiting aspect, right? When you have good players like that, you kind of know what you're starting to look for, right? Well, this guy did this and he went on and did this. And you kind of start seeing those attributes of what made them so special when they were in college. And then you try to find those guys now.
That's interesting. You're talking about there's kind of this thing you look for in baseball players, but I've also heard you talk about the you're kind of recruiting starting in Ohio and kind of expanding from there. And it looks like that on your roster. You've got almost 20 guys from Ohio on the roster.
Right.
And then outside of that, you got Michigan guys, you got some Illinois guys, a couple of guys from Canada. So when you're doing that, is Ohio that much of a hotbed for this kind of, college baseball player that you're looking for?
Yeah, Ohio is a very good state, a lot better than most people would probably think. And back in the day, like Danny Hall, who's down at Georgia Tech, if you really pay attention, a lot of the good players in the state of Ohio go south. I mean, they end up at Georgia Tech, they end up at Louisville, they end up at, Tennessee's and South Carolina's. I mean, they go south. So there is some really good talent in the state of Ohio. And of course, every place is different, right? When I'm at Ole Miss, you can recruit coast to coast nationwide because it's a national brand and it's the SEC. When you're at a place like Toledo, you have to recruit differently, and you're not maybe you can't make your living down south or out west or in Texas. So our strategy has always been to recruit the best kids in Northwest Ohio and then the state of Ohio and then branch out from there. And we've been very successful with that. I mean, we've had a look at our roster. I mean, we get a lot of the better players in the Toledo, Northwest Ohio area. And then because of my connections to Columbus, we've hit Columbus extremely hard and had good success there. Cleveland's been a good area. The one spot in Ohio that really has not we haven't had good luck there is Cincinnati for whatever reason. And I think there's a lot, they got to pass a lot of really good schools before they get all the way up here to Toledo. I mean, there's Miami down there, Wright State's been very successful. Ohio State, Cincinnati is doing a lot better now. So we haven't really gotten the guys from Cincinnati, but we've done well in other parts of the state. And like you said, we get into Michigan. Illinois is a great state. Chicago is awesome. I mean, that's a great, talk about hotbeds of talent. That's always been kind of one of my goals, is to be able to get into Chicago area, because it's only 4 hours right across the turnpike to get here. So it's starting to pay dividends, making those connections. And we've had a lot of really good players and starting to get even more from Illinois too.
You mentioned, or Graham mentioned rather, your roster has some guys from Toronto. How did that pipeline kind of get started? That feels like there's a lot of great baseball talent in Canada, but Toronto specifically feels like a hotbed. How did that pipeline come about?
One, it's not that far away, obviously, but two, like every year we play like these international kind of high school travel teams, and they go all over the country and play. I don't even know how, they don't even really seem to go to school. They just play baseball year round, it seems like. But every year we play these Canadian teams in the fall. And a couple, like Cam Gravel's one of the kids on the team that you're talking about. He played against us and played really, really well. So it was very easy to make that decision that we wanted to get him. The other Canadian on the team is actually a junior college kid, and he was playing out in Colorado, and we needed a catcher, and it worked out. And so he just ended up being an international guy. But we've had a kid from Australia before. We've got kids from Arizona. We've had kids from Florida and Texas. I mean, we will go and fill needs as we can, but our kind of bread and butter is Ohio, Michigan, Indiana, and Illinois.
With the nature of kind of college recruiting now, obviously, recruiting in 2000 is a lot different than recruiting in 2025 with things like NIL, the transfer portal. What does that look like for Toledo? It feels like it's a lot more, all right, we have this need, let's go look at the portal, and then let's also look at the high school side. Can you kind of touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, I don't have NIL money here at Toledo for baseball, and nobody in the MAC really, nobody has it, right? It's non-existent for us. So we what we try to do, like I said, we go out and we try to get those high school kids first. And we know we like the high school guys because we have more time to really work with them and develop them and whatnot. But we've been really successful here in the last 2-3 years of being able to tap into that transfer portal and plug holes. You know, guys like talked about Grant Umberger, you know, he threw 33 innings in 3 years at Virginia Tech and never really got on the mound that much, but we could look on, you know, the synergy and all the platforms that we can kind of recruit from, so to speak. And the stuff was good. He just needed an opportunity. And lo and behold, he comes here and he leads the MAC in pitching last year. And now he's, you know, a Chicago White Sox. So those have been the guys that we tend to get, you know, the SECs, my buddies in the SEC and the ACC, they're getting the kid that played at, you know, that played at Kent State, played at Toledo, whatever, that already has stats. He's already a proven commodity because he's put up numbers and he's got, you know, great backing, so to speak, right? That's who they get. We get the guy that's at the big school that hasn't played a lot, but has a lot of talent and just needs that opportunity. And we've hit on a lot of those guys, and we've been very fortunate in that regard. I mean, and this year's team has 3 or 4 guys on it that have tremendous potential to make impacts at this level. They just needed a shot.
Yeah, give us some idea what the team this year is going to look like. We talked about Grant Umberger, who's your Friday night guy last year. Who's taking the bump on Fridays for you this year?
This year, when we go to Oregon next week, Jacob Tabor is going to start for us on Friday night. And Jake was a freshman All-American last year. He's a Columbus kid, an Olentangy Powell guy. But last year, he pitched the majority of the time out of our bullpen, and he led the MAC in saves, I believe, as a true freshman. He had 7 or 8 saves, was absolutely tremendous. But his, you know, next transition is to become a starter, and we think he's ready for that. So he'll kind of go into that role. And then a couple of the other guys, Jackson Bergman is back from last year. He was one of our main relievers at the beginning of the year, ended up being a weekend guy towards the end. He'll be in our rotation in some capacity. We have another kid from Virginia Tech that's in here, a kid named Ryan Kennedy, who's got a tremendous arm, kind of like Grant and Noah Johnson, who was before him from Virginia Tech, just needed an opportunity. And so he'll be in there. And then RJ Shunk is a local kid that has been in our program now for 2-3 years and just continues to get better and better. So those will probably be the 4 guys that start for us when we go out to Oregon. And then after that 4-game series, we start playing more of that traditional 3-game weekend. So we'll figure out, you know, who's the best 3 to start and kind of roll from there.
Talking about the pitching, let's go to the offensive side of the ball here. Obviously, Garrett Pike led the way for the program last year. You're going to miss him in the lineup for sure. But I know you got guys like Luke Walton in the pipeline, ready to kind of take that next step off of their freshman year. Who else should we be kind of expecting to be a force behind the plate?
Yeah, this year's different than any of my other years here because we've always had that guy. You know, it was Chris Myers for the first couple of years, and then it transitioned to Jaron Williams and Garrett Pike. I can't really say that we have that guy that everybody looks at and says, wow, he's the man. But we've got a lot of really good college hitters. I mean, you mentioned Luke Walton. He had a phenomenal year last year as a redshirt freshman. We expect big things out of him. He should be right in the middle of the heart of the order. Caden Konzak is a kid that has literally been in our lineup for 3 straight years now, going into his 4th year. And like the numbers don't jump off the page at you, but they're really consistent. I mean, he's a consistent like 275 hitter. You know, you're going to get a bunch of walks and high on base, and you know he's going to hit 7 or 8 home runs. We're hoping he can have an uptick. You know, his 4th year, can he hit 300? Can he hit 310 and hit 15 home runs? You know, it's in there. Can he do it? We'll see. I mean, he's one. We brought in a kid named Luke Leto from Michigan, and he actually transferred in from Kansas. But coming out of high school, he was one of the top probably 15, 20 players in the entire country. And he started out at LSU. Didn't really play there, went to Kansas, he was probably a part-time guy, honestly, at Kansas, but the skill set is unreal. I mean, his skill set probably ranks up there with every one of those guys we're talking about, the Williams, the Pikes, the Myers. I mean, it is a tremendous skill set. He's just never really been given the opportunity to play every single day. But when you watch him hit, I mean, he hits the ball further than anybody we have. He runs faster than anybody we have. He throws it harder. So, I mean, it's a phenomenal skill set. What will happen if he's in the lineup and gets 200 at bats? I'm excited to see that because we know it can be really, really good. But there's some unknown there as well. But then we've got a lot of other good players. I mean, like Troy Sudbrook's back from, his freshman year, he played a good bit. Last year he was injured and we really, really missed him, but he's back at third. Chuck Chauvin is kind of our glue guy. He plays shortstop for us. And when he got healthy last year and could play the second half of the season, that solidified our infield defense and made us outstanding. JP Wagner's another local kid who had a great freshman year with the bat. He's going to play second, and we hope that he can, continue on his path and produce a little bit more. Braden White is back for a fourth year. He's been our catcher now for, 3-4 years. That's really cool to have a guy like that with all that time behind the plate, because he's a good leader and he's a potential, bat as well. So we have a lot of really good players. We just don't have that going in. We'll say it, we don't have that star that everybody looks at and says, oh, that's their guy. But I got like 7 or 8 guys that are really, really good. So I like this offense because it's different. It's more deep. It's 1 through 9 versus, being really top heavy. And we're going to have to be creative. We may not have the same power we've always had, but we'll create runs different ways this year for sure.
Yeah. I mean, it feels like that was kind of Bowling Green's key to success last year. They didn't really have that star guy before the season started out. And then we ended up with a kind of an unreal season from them.
Yep.
Do you see anybody like that this year other than Toledo? Is there anybody in the MAC who we should be watching out for as a surprise team?
I don't really think there's like anybody that should shock you. I mean, I think this year Ball State's going to be as good as they always are. I mean, they're kind of always solid. I think Kent State did an outstanding job in the transfer portal and brought in some good players, so they should be really good, at least on paper. I think we have a chance to be right up there at the very top with everybody when it's all said and done, because of, we've talked a lot about our offense to this point, but really the strength of my team is pitching and defense. I mean, that's kind of what our strength is. And, the old adage is you win championships with pitching and defense, and those are our strengths. So I feel good about that. And then I think the offense will be productive. I don't think anybody really saw what was coming with Bowling Green. I mean, it just kind of manifested itself and just kind of happened. And some of that is a lot of those players that they had. It was a very old team. I mean, those kids, Tyler Ross and all those guys, I mean, they'd been around for a long time, and they, that was the same group that was getting their teeth kicked in for 2 or 3 years. And then all of a sudden, you get older and you get more acclimated to it and you figure things out. And then they got on that hot streak. And we all know when you get hot, like, you feel like you can't be beat. And then all of a sudden, like, you're beating teams that you shouldn't probably have beaten. And then it just kind of rolls from there. So, I mean, they had a phenomenal year, but they did it with a lot of older guys that have been through the fire. And I think we're kind of in that mold this year where we have a lot of guys that have been in my lineup now for 3 years. Can they kind of make that next jump and take it to another level?
You guys start the season off out against Oregon.
Yeah.
I think I just saw their ranking was number 12 in the country. Talk about a tough test to kick the year off. But how weird is it that they're a Big Ten opponent?
Yeah, I mean, who would have thought that, right? They're projected to win the Big Ten. I mean, they're, like you said, they're number 12 in the country. Their Friday night guy is a preseason All-American and was absolutely dominant last year. So it'll be a really good test for us. We weren't supposed to even play Oregon, to be honest with you. We had scheduled to play UNC Greensboro, and I do the scheduling, so we do it years and years in advance. And the Greensboro coach calls up out of the blue at the last minute, this fall, and says, "Hey, I can't have you. Like, I have a double booked it. I don't know how I did it, but I did." And we were looking, and the only teams that really had openings was Texas Tech and Oregon, and neither place is very desirable to get to. I mean, they're kind of both out in the middle of nowhere. Yeah. And so I just called both, and I was like, look, I got it open, and whoever gives me the most money will come play. And Oregon won that little bidding war. So we're going out there, and it'll be fun. It'll be a good test. Most of my guys have never really been to that part of the country before. I've never been to that part of the country before. So it'll be exciting. And obviously we know that Oregon has a phenomenal program. I mean, they're one of 2 teams in the entire country that have been to the Super Regionals the last couple of years. So they're a good club, and it'll be a good test for us. But we'll at least get to see where we're at and where we stack up. And then, honestly, I've kind of done a number to us because High Point's the next weekend, and they're projected to win their league. So we'll be tested right out of the gate. I mean, I think our first 8 games are against teams that all went to the postseason, the regionals last year. So it'll be exciting. But for us, the whole thing in preseason is to get ready for MAC play. I mean, the MAC is traditionally and historically a one bid league. So there is no real at large, berth out of the MAC. So our whole goal is to be ready to play really good baseball when it comes MAC time, and then get into that tournament and make a run and win that thing and go to a regional.
Kind of touching on Big Ten programs and programs that are supposed to win their league. You've played Michigan, and I see they're on the schedule again this year. Yep. But you played them at Fifth Third Field, I believe, last year, and then you played several Bowling Green series at Fifth Third. How special has that been for you guys to get that opportunity to play there?
Oh, it's unbelievable. I mean, when I got here, was named the head coach, I couldn't believe that we never played there. I mean, it's a world-class facility. It's one of the best AAA parks in all of minor league baseball. And I'm listening and looking at it. It's like right down the street from us. We need to play there. And I talked to Kyle Halleck, and we're like, hey, let's get a series going there. And so it's kind of manifested over the last couple of years. But the whole idea was, we always try to play like a Friday night marquee game there, our MAC game there. Whoever is the home team for that series or whatever gets to play there and be the home squad. And from there, it's been really cool. I mean, we've been averaging, 3,000-4,000 people at those Bowling Green games. And that's been really exciting, because some of my guys will never play in those type of environments where there's that many people in the stands, and to play at a AAA park of that magnitude is great. So what happened was, I've always wanted to play, Big Ten teams. And I'll be quite honest with you, there isn't a Big Ten team that will come and play at Scott Park here at Toledo. And so I pitched it to Tracy Smith up at Michigan. I was like, look, we'll play a home and home. I want to play you home and home. We'll come and play you at Michigan, but you need to come down and play me in Toledo, but we'll play at the Pro Park. And he said, absolutely, we'll do it. And so it was a great opportunity for us to get a home game against a Big Ten team that traditionally would not come and play, at a MAC school. And we had close to 1,500 people there last year. So that was a cool environment. So I'm hoping that these things continue to grow year after year.
I was going to say, that would be an opportunity to have a lot of local Big Ten teams come in, right? The Ohio States, perhaps a Michigan State, or even in Indiana. That would be a really big opportunity, especially with that right there in the back.
Next goal is to get Ohio State.
I love it.
I want to try to get Michigan and Ohio State both home and homes, because again, when you look at our schedule, like a lot of times, we have to go to Ohio State, we have to go to Michigan. They won't come to us, but if we play at a pro park like that, they will, and that's exciting. And then we have on the horizon here a new stadium coming, not too long down the road here. I think once we get a ballpark that is on campus and first class and all that good stuff, I think we'll be able to probably pull more of those Big Ten type teams in here to play us.
Yeah, I know we Alex and I tried to go to a couple of games when we were in school at UT, and that travel to Scott Park, even though it's not that far, does make it hard to go to ball games. So it'd be great to have that stadium on campus.
Absolutely.
That's so you start your coaching career at Ohio Dominican, then you end up at a string of schools like Charleston, South Alabama, Ole Miss.
Yep.
And that's you went to regionals and some super regionals with 6 years in a row there. Toledo fans obviously hungry to win that MAC tournament, to make that regional. What do you think it takes to make that next step?
I mean, for us here, when I got here in 2019, we finished dead last. Toledo was the worst team in the MAC. I mean, they won 4 games in MAC play in 2019, and it was just awful. And I think since I got here in July of 2019, we've slowly kind of built the program up to a point where now we are contending, and we are one of the teams that can win this league. What we've shown over the course of the last 5 years is, like, we've had some really good offensive years where we've been absolutely just dynamite with the bats and dynamic, but we haven't really pitched very well. Last year, we all of a sudden, we are one of the best pitching staffs in the entire MAC, but we don't hit like we normally hit. We went through like a little swoon in the middle of the season where there was like 10 games where I don't even think we scored a run. It was awful. It was absolutely awful, but that never happened to us before. To answer your question, what we have to do is be able to put everything together at the same time. Like and of course that's how every team wins, but for us, that is the next step. I mean, we've shown we can be a really solid offense. We've shown that we can pitch. Can we do it at the same time? Can we do it the same year? Defense has always been pretty steady here. We've always played really good defense. So I'm excited about this team because I do think we are strong on the mound. I do think we have a great defense. And then I truly do believe we'll be able to score runs in a multitude of ways. So I think this could be a really good year. And this is the 100th year of Toledo baseball. I mean, we are 100 years having a baseball program fielded here. And the kind of the saying around our facility here is, let's make the 100th year the best year, and let's make this something really, really awesome, because Toledo's never won a championship here. They've never, I mean, in 100 years, you think of all those doldrums of the Red Sox and the Cubs, and everybody go, oh my God, they haven't won in 70 years, whatever. We haven't won in 100 years. There hasn't been a championship. Or you would think in 100 years they could have, somebody along the way would have backed into a championship somewhere, like just fallen into it, and it's never happened. So I'm excited, because that's one of the reasons I came here, was because I wanted to be the guy that gets this team a championship, that gets this program and this university a championship for the sport of baseball. And I think we're finally scratching at the surface where we can do that.
You guys have been in the MAC MAC tournament rather, last 2 out of the last 3 years. Picked up a couple wins against really one of the relative powers out of the conference, Kent State, and then of course Miami. That had to have been phenomenal experience, especially for your young guys, to kind of see this is that grind of a 4-day tournament. This is what you have to do. That feels like a net positive all around, competing in that tournament. Yeah,
we played really well last year. And last year was the first year that it was kind of back to the original 16 format, double elimination. The first year that we made it, it was hosted at Ball State. It was 4 teams, and it still was a double elimination, but it was a different feel than what a traditional MAC tournament is like. So to be able to play at Avon and have it be, kind of at a neutral site and have that 6 teams, it was pretty cool. And we played really, really good baseball. I mean, it was awesome. And we were probably an arm or a swing away from even getting further, maybe getting into that championship game. This year, I feel, again, like I think our pitching and defense can carry us a long way. And then we just have to get the offense to score timely, and then we should be in really good shape. Now, that's how it looks going into the season. And, talk to me in 2 weeks, I may have a different outlook on things, but that's how we feel right now. And I really like this team. I think we can do some things.
So I guess we're going to kind of wrap this up a little bit. You've been awesome, but we got a few more questions for you.
Yeah, no.
For me, one of my questions I love to ask any coach, player, administrator, why do you love coaching the MAC? What makes the MAC so special?
The MAC is a very, how do I put this? It doesn't really get the notoriety I think that it should. I mean, we are in the shadows of the Big Ten, and they get all the pub and they get all the notice or whatever, but there's really good baseball played in the MAC. I mean, they're really good baseball. There's been years where we've had more draft picks in the MAC than the Big Ten has. There's been years where we have first rounders and they don't, I mean, there's some really good baseball played here. And I think that gets overshadowed a lot of times. And so, like, it's exciting. We have a cool league because we don't have that massive travel that a lot of people do. I mean, everybody's within 2 or 3 hours of this place, because especially for me, because I'm centrally located right in the heart of it all. So for us, our travel is great. But you have all these rivalries, right? Like Bowling Green is a massive rivalry for us. But Kent State has turned into a pretty big rival of ours. Their coach is a good friend of mine. And so there's some heat there between me and him, but we've played them extremely well in my time here. Ball State's the one school that I really need to get a grasp on. I mean, last year we beat them 2 out of 3, but before that we'd struggled against them, and they're kind of the blue blood of this league now. So that's the one that everybody's kind of aiming for. And then you got the Westerns, and there's other programs. Miami of Ohio is doing a great job recruiting. They got a new coach. I think they're going to really elevate where they are in the standings and their program. So, I mean, it's a cool league to play in, and there's a lot of good little rivalries that go on. I mean, and again, I'm lucky because I'm right dab smack in the middle. Eastern's 45 minutes away from me. Bowling Green's 20. I mean, those are good rivalries right there. And then, like I said, Kent State for me is a big one. But it's just a cool league, and I think that there's a lot of good baseball players that play in this league for sure.
Graham, before we do our rapid fire, you have any other questions for Coach?
Ooh, rapid fire.
No, I think that's it. I think we're ready to get into these rapid fire questions here.
All awesome. Right. See what I can do.
One short answer just off the top of your head. So we're gonna start your favorite restaurant in Toledo.
Fifth Street Pub.
Okay. We'll go here.
I live in Perrysburg, and it's right down the street from me, so I go there a lot. But
okay, fair enough.
Toledo restaurant, the Blarney. I like the Blarney.
Fair enough. All right, we got next up here. Your favorite baseball movie?
Bull Durham, 1000%.
Good choice. We've got what is the biggest animal that you think you could take in a fight?
I could take in a fight. I mean, geez, maybe my fat little Frenchy bulldog. I mean, I don't think I can take a lot of animals in a fight, but I'll take my Frenchie. He's feisty.
We've got best seed flavor.
Best seed flavor, barbecue.
Okay. Best walk-up song or your favorite walk-up song?
Return of the Mac.
Okay. If you are an incoming freshman, who are you trying to get an NIL deal with?
That's a great one. If I'm an incoming freshman, I'm trying to get a car. I'm trying to be like the women's basketball team and get some cars. So
okay.
any of the dealerships, Yark, we'll say Yark.
Okay. And then last not least, who is the best Mac podcast?
Oh, you guys for sure, 100%. That's an easy one.
End it with a softball there.
Yeah, you know.
and you got my shirt on. I see.
I do. Yeah, gotta rep the Rockets always.
I love it.
Coach, we can't thank you enough for spending time with us this evening. We know how busy you are. We're going to be both cheering you on as you guys kick this season off. Hoping to see you guys in Avon. We were there last year, cheered you guys on a little bit, and just really looking forward to seeing what the Rockets do this year.
No, we'll be there. I have no doubts we'll be there, and I appreciate you guys having me on. Anything I could ever do, let me know, and appreciate it. It's awesome.
We appreciate it. Graham, anything else?
No, just thanks so much, Coach, and excited to watch some Rockets baseball.
Sounds good, fellas. Well, hopefully we'll see you down there at Fifth Third, one of those big games.
Sounds good. Let's make it happen. Guys, Thank you so much for tuning in. We really appreciate it. We appreciate Coach Rob Reinstetle from the University of Toledo for joining us. Great opportunity to talk with him and about the Rockets. Make sure you guys check out all the socials on Twitter X at the MSC Podcast, Instagram at the MSC Podcast, YouTube, where you'll be able to find this recording and others at MSC Podcast. You can listen to the show on Amazon Music, Apple, Google, Spotify, wherever you find podcasts, we're there. Make sure you guys check it out. Hit like, subscribe, and share. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and we will see you next week.
Take care. Go Rockets.